Well, it's a pretty long career because it's around 35 years, so it's a lot of things to take. I would say that probably I can divide my career into periods. I studied industrial design, so first years after school, I did work a lot on technical projects. And probably if I want to highlight anything there, it would be, and which was very important for my kind of evolution, was the work I did with ABB. ABB is a big electrical engineering company, designed a lot of products, very technical products. They are not to be seen. And the dialogue with the engineers in the 90s, convincing them that design had any relevance in this kind of technical product, that was really tough. And then I think we also designed like a coordinated identity for all the products. So this whole thing about how to convince people about the use of design, the technical aspect, and think about it in a bigger picture, that was probably what I learned a lot from that. Another key client I had, because it's more like client relation than a singular project, was the Unilever Group. I worked with, from 97, doing toothbrushes. It's a pure marketing. They're just marketing-driven company, and that kind of taught me about marketing. And a lot of designers, we look at marketing as being something negative. We don't really like it. So it was really healthy for me to see that. I'm not saying that's my dream job in many ways. Yes, I've done a lot of things in that, but it kind of gave you the perspective of the market, how important is the insight, how important it is to understand what the market actually needs and read into it. So that was kind of another step on it. And that led me to Blue Lagoon in Iceland. Started working with them in 97. And what I loved about that project is that gave me an opportunity to start experimenting with what I was learning in the other part. So understanding the technicalities and the technique, and that is important. Understanding about the market, that the market is important. There's economy behind things. And then understanding about nature, because Iceland is very much about nature. Blue Lagoon is there. And then I was just missing a third element, which was, let's say, kind of the branding part. And that was a part I started learning in 3M. I worked a lot with 3M for many years, which was very much technical, but then you have like Post-it notes, which is very much about branding. So, and we were doing this innovation center. So I think it's kind of a 20 year of becoming a designer. Right? I'm a very slow learner. Right? It takes me a time. So that kind of gave me this kind of ground of understanding the different aspects. And that's what I'm kind of most proud of is this, having multiple views on different things, having different tools from the big companies, but actually using it on a smaller scale or using it for other purposes. That's maybe what I like a lot. Every project have, you could say, to simplify things, 4 dimensions. There is some technology, tech material, whatever is involved. There is some human element, culture, doesn't matter. There's some human element involved. Then there is obviously economic involved because someone has to pay or it has to survive the project. And there is nature involved because whatever we do is going to impact nature, either by the resource of use and how we do. So I'm trying to tell people to understand that you need to consider the balancing or the recipe of how much is the importance of each one of these may change in a project and may be actually dynamic and fluid. But you have to consider that. The other thing I like to get across is that you have to flow with complexity. Because today, everything is we have to understand these are various things aligned together, and they may actually change a little bit by the month, by the week. And you have to be very flexible. Don't go like a horse with a, whatever you call it, no? You have to kind of flow with it, understand it, and be flexible, and be willing to kind of go back on it. But always have in mind the big picture. So I think that's what I'm trying to get them across. You may have to jump into the detailing and do that excellent, and then you have to jump up to the big picture and see how the strategy of the whole thing. At the same time, you think, it has to be sold to someone. It has to be convinced to someone. So this kind of a flexibility of going detailing up, very horizontal thinking on it, and don't forget. And then just fine-tune it, try. Frame the problem, throw it out, get the feedback, reframe it, and by this frame and reframe, you end up with slowly understanding what is the right thing. Because the most of the time, the client and the user and the consumers, they really don't know what they want. If you are going to do innovation, it means it's not known. You're doing something new, it's innovation. So therefore, have the courage to do that, but don't do it just like throwing it out. So that, I guess, was what I was trying to get across. Okay, social design, already we have a small difficulties here, is that there is not always the same interpretation. So social design, if you think about from the 70s, well, Papanek was starting it, it was very much about the first world helping the third world, which is already an attitude of, we are the first world and we have the, no. Social design for me is that, but it's everything is, because if you want to change opinion, I mean, we have a huge problem in the environment. That's a social design to change that. Because you cannot engineer a solution, and you make a thing, and you adapt that object you was engineered, and it will solve the problem of environment. No, environment is a consumption problem. It's the logistic problem. It's what happens with the things after we have used them. It's the mentality, why do we have to buy so much thing? It's a social problem. So I think we have actually, it's not the first world teaching anyone. I think someone has to teach us the first world, because actually I think we have exported a lot of very bad habits to the rest of the world. So the big problems we have today, they are actually half created by this attitude. So social design for me means involving a society, trying to understand those 4 elements I mentioned before, finding the right balance between the technology, between the human culture needs, between the economy of things, because we have to survive, and the most important resource we have, nature. So social design is about enabling communities, people, can be wherever in the world, that's not the important thing, and get a change going. Because if we want to solve our problems, we have all the resources today. We have economic resources. I mean, there is much more money in the world than we need. There is a technology to do things. What you cannot get, why am I not solving it? Because we cannot get people aligned. We cannot get people together to go for something. Okay, we went to the moon because there were some people who said, hey, we want to go to the moon. We need these kind of things. And this is, for me, social design, is how can we nudge the little things with little projects to change the mindset of people and slowly activate the change.